Life in the Tower. As the credits rolled on Newsroom with Jack Elder, 2 more avid viewers watched. They did not watch from New Orleans or Connecticut, though, or anywhere else that could be found on a traditional map. In fact, the 2 viewers watched from the very heart of the controversy, one might say. Gregory Leary and Tabitha Shaw sat on a huge overstuffed leather couch in Shaw's personal chambers, viewing the Jack Elder program on a massive flat-screen television. How Tabitha had such modern marvels functioning here in a city where electricity and running water did not exist for most of its residents was still a mystery to Gregory. He'd asked her several times over the last 2 weeks, and she always replied with a dismissive note of sarcasm. Tabby gets what Tabby wants, or rank has privilege. Eventually, he stopped asking and simply took a bit of joy in having such home comforts here. He'd not been able to return to London as soon as he'd planned, and recent events ruled that almost impossible now anyway, at least for the time being. Neither he nor Tabitha knew exactly what Pinkerton had ventured off to accomplish when he left Delphia in their hands, but now it seemed apparent, and Gregory was furious, though he did not want to show it. He'd worked his entire life to mask the existence of Delphia. After all, that was his family legacy. He'd defied his father's final wishes and brought Trevor into the fold, also in the name of keeping Delphia and Tobit out of the minds of the world's population. And now, in just a matter of 2 short weeks, all of his efforts were in vain. Everyone from sea to fucking shining sea on all continents was talking about this mysterious entity that was Hyraaq Tobit. Scientists and government officials were digging into it. He was shocked to see his and Trevor's little scare tactic back in New York make the national news as well. All that damned effort, dashed by Pinkerton. And for what? What could Thaddeus Pinkerton hope to accomplish by turning the whole world onto Tobit? According to the news, it was causing panic, riots, and crime. People were going nuts and giving all the thanks to Tobit. Was this always the plan? And if so, why wait so long? If all it took was revealing some damn star in the sky to put the world under Tobit's spell, why wait at all? Of course, Gregory, perhaps being optimistic, perhaps being realistic, or maybe both, suspected the news wasn't that grim. There were billions of people on Earth, so even if Tobit affected just 1 million or so, the overall losses weren't that bad, right? If it wasn't Tobit causing chaos, there was still lots of other evils out there, just like he'd explained to his bull-headed uncle, leader of the failing unwashed upon his arrival. There would always be terrorist groups like ISIS. There would always be neo-Nazi groups, the KKK, the Westboro Baptist Church, the IRA, the Taliban, and so many more. If Tobit terrorized a few, he was just really another small fish in the big pond of evil assholes trying to ruin the world. No, Gregory Leary was far less concerned about Tobit taking over the world than he was simply enraged that his lifelong ambitions, all of his work and sacrifice, had essentially led to nothing. He wanted to confront Tabitha Shaw, his newly found lover who both enthralled him and scared the shit out of him at times, but he knew that was a very dangerous game. Since the sister, Lena Vasquez, returned with Derek, Claire, and Trevor in tow, turning them over to Tabitha like a prize, there had been one major issue: the death of Lacey Susino. She had been Tabitha's favorite. She wouldn't go into detail, but she always said that she saw something in Lacey that reminded her of better times. Gregory never pushed for details on that statement. He knew Pinkerton had recruited Tabitha at a young age, and that Tabitha herself recruited Lacey at a young age, so perhaps that was their connection in her mind. They'd both grown from girls to women in the care and custody of Hyraaq Tobit, so he could imagine there might be a bond there. When Lena had come marching into the tower with Derek, Trevor, and Claire tied up at gunpoint, Tabitha had been all smiles. She couldn't wait to tell Pinkerton of this success. Another win for her sisters, another notch in the belt of Tabitha, and one step closer, perhaps, to Tab's dream of moving up in the so-called Council of Tobit. However, it didn't take long for Tabitha to notice that she was missing an agent. Before Claire and Derek were even hauled away to the dungeons to join Timothy Van Buren and the other captured rebels, she'd asked where her girl Lacey was. Lena took Tabitha's hand, and being very cautious, explained that Lacey had not survived the mission. Tabitha's rage was beyond comprehension, as was Gregory's fear. He still believed that he killed Lacey in the hotel room when he shot her in the stomach. As far as Gregory Leary was aware, that was when the deed happened. And now Lena was here with his brother, and should she inform Tabitha of that particular little fact, no one would be able to escape her kill zone alive. However, Lena lied, just like that. She blamed it on the New Orleans police. She chose her words carefully, making sure not to imply that Lacey had been sloppy or at all at fault in her own death. She said it was simple dumb luck on the part of some beat cop, just some guy in the right place at the right time that witnessed Lacey at work. Lena promised that she dealt with the cop, avenged their fallen sister, and forced the man to scream and bleed in more ways than one could describe. Tabitha thanked Lena, appearing to believe every word of it. Gregory, for the life of him, could not figure out why she was lying. Was she trying to help him, or was she trying to spare the others from Tabitha's wrath? Just more mysteries in an already overflowing sea of them, it would appear. "You're all going to fucking die," Tabitha had said flatly to the newly captured group, and promptly marched back towards her chambers. As she walked up the stairs, she called back to Gregory. "Have them put in the dungeon. They live because Mr. Pinkerton will want to see them. You can put your little piss-ass brother in your chambers if you want. Now, I want to be alone. Don't bother me today, Gregory." Gregory and Lena were left staring at each other, no words exchanged. They were both equally shocked at where the other stood. His uncle had stated that one of Tabitha's sisters was working for the unwashed. Since it clearly wasn't Lacey, that only left the stern-faced Colombian woman standing before him. And if she really was working with his uncle, why was she bringing in Trevor, Claire, and Derek in chains, with a gun pointed at them? Had she flip-flopped back over to the side of Tobit, or was this somehow part of his uncle's grand scheme? He now knew he would have to make time to speak with her as soon as possible. Lena was also confused. Not as to who killed Lacey, that much she did not have to ponder, but rather, what the hell a Leary brother was doing walking about free in the Great Tower, apparently taking orders from Tabitha herself. She knew he'd struck a deal with Madison. Trevor had told him that much. She knew he'd likely misused a warping amulet and wound up in Delphia, but in all truth, she could not understand what he was doing here and not in the dungeon, or perhaps dead. Much like Gregory, Lena decided that a sit-down between the two of them would have to take place at the first chance. Luckily, with Tabitha throwing a fit and locking herself in her room, that might not be too difficult. Lena whispered something into Trevor's ear. Trevor nodded and made eye contact with his big brother. Lena looked them all over as she was joined on either side by two of the blue-uniformed Delphia cops. "Listen, shits, I'm taking your asses to the dungeon, yeah? The old calabozo. We're going to have a nice, safe walk there, so no funny shit or I'll have these fine officers here bash your head in. Mr. Pinky wants you alive, but he didn't say alive and well. Plus, if you happen to be brain dead, we have magic here that can still make you talk, so just walk, be nice, and we all get where we're going in one piece. Comprende, pendejos? As for the sissy here, I guess Tabitha said you could bunk with your big brother, who somehow has a room here. Amazing. I go away for a few days and come back to madness. Now, you two fucks, walk!" Trevor was unchained by one of the blue-uniformed guards and handed over to Gregory. "Sir, by declaration of Mistress Shaw, I turn this prisoner over to you. Good day to you, champion. Hail Tobit! Hail the champion!" Trevor was too shocked to speak. The sheer magnitude of simply standing in Delphia itself would have been enough to render him silent, but now it would seem his brother had come here and somehow been appointed to a position of respect and authority. He could have laughed at this, but it brought him much closer to tears. Gregory reflected on that day as Newsroom finally ended its credits and Tabitha flipped through the channels until she landed on Bachelor in Paradise, one of her all-time favorite shows. Gregory found this to be an endearing trait with her. For such a cold-blooded killer as Tabitha was, her taste in television was around the level of a bored housewife. Bravo was her favorite network, and she watched all the Real Housewife shows with a studied fervor. Big Brother and Survivor were two other all-time favorites of hers as well, and before long Gregory knew more about the dynamics of those reality shows than he had ever really cared to find out. However, they'd kept Tabitha somewhat calm over these last 2 weeks, and that was all he could hope for. Still, though, he could not contain his outrage, and felt that if he were careful in word, he could perhaps vent to this woman who was both his girlfriend and captor. "Tabs, try and understand how this shit makes me feel. I've been honest with you. I've told you from day one that I spent my entire life trying to prevent the exact events that are happening right this second around the world. My entire life, babe, dedicated to keeping the name of Tobit and Delphia out of the mouths of people. I sacrificed it all. Friends, life, marriage, and family, all to carry on the family legacy. And Pinkerton, just like that, went and pissed it all away." Tabitha paused her program, holding the remote high and letting it fall to the floor. This instantly caused Gregory fear. He recognized this little tradition as a sign of frustration with her. She didn't like to be bothered while her shows were on. That was made clear from almost day one. But with the death of Lacey, it now seemed that anything could set her off. Gregory could only hope that he was safe within her company, that she valued him more alive than dead. Perhaps Pinkerton had long-term plans for them to work together. Either way, he could do nothing more than hope that these possible plans would be enough to keep him safe. Tabitha looked at Gregory and held up one hand, snapping her fingers in rhythm with her words. This was yet another sign of her agitation, though a new one for Gregory to witness. "Lover, listen. Listen to me really good right now, okay?" He nodded carefully, and she continued. "I like you a lot, Greg. I really do. You're smart, you're handsome. You've got a set of balls on you that requires a damn dump truck to move around. And the sex, well, that's enough to keep you around by itself. But listen, Lacey was like a daughter to me. I know you don't have kids. You sacrificed all that to stifle knowledge of Tobit and blah, blah, fucking blah. Hell, I don't even have real kids either, but Lacey was damned close. Sort of like the way your pussy of a little brother is to you. Get it? Now imagine he was killed, and imagine that the ones indirectly responsible for his death, perhaps, were locked up in a dungeon that you could access any time. Think about how much force of will it might take you to keep from storming down there and tearing them apart. And Greg, killing is easy to me. You did in Madison. Big thanks for that, by the way, but that was more of a revenge killing for your dad, right? Me, killing isn't even a hobby. It's like breathing, you know? I don't even know what the fuck guilt feels like. So, while you might hesitate on avenging even your brother, for no other reason than the fact that killing isn't second nature to you, for me, well, I could go into your room right now and slice open Trevor's neck. Then I could trot on down to the dungeon and do in Claire and Derek. Then I could come up here, eat a big dinner, and watch The Amazing Race or something and not lose a moment of sleep over it. That's just how I'm wired, lover, so right this second in time, Gregory, I am fighting every impulse in my body to stay here on this couch, next to you, instead of going out and doing what all those gory little impulses are just begging me to do. You get that, Greg, do you? And while I'm doing all that and being an amazing hot girlfriend for you at the same time, you sit there and want to complain that your little life project failed. Well, here's the deal. So did mine. Lacey was my favorite, like I said. I wanted the sky to be her limit. I always thought, once she got her bloodlust under control, that she could very well take my place as leader of the sisters once I stepped up to the council. I loved her, Greg, the same way you love that sniveling little vagina you call a brother. And you want to know the kicker? I don't quite believe Lena's story about some random cop taking Lacey out. Sure, it could have happened. Absolutely it could have. It's happened to my girls before, just like it's happened to Madison's. Or should I say, you're faithful. People out there get lucky from time to time. Hell, that's one of the reasons the Sisters of Tobit were formed, to take care of the lucky ones that didn't scare as easy as most. But the whole story, it just seemed too clean, too easy. Gregory, sensing a chance to get back into Tabitha's graces, risked a question. Well, Tabs, what do you believe happened? I think one of your brother's friends did it. I think there was a struggle and someone, probably that fucking kid Derek, got the drop on her. It's unlikely. Lacey was so damn stellar, but still. Accidents happen. I think Lena might be lying to save me, though, which is why I'm allowing it to happen. Save you how? Mr. Pinky wants them alive. He wants to question them, toy with them. Fucking who knows? I think Lena knew if I found out one of them killed Lacey, that I would have lost my shit and ended them all right where they stood. I wouldn't have been able to stop myself. As good as that would have felt, I would have had to answer to Mr. Pinky for that, and I can promise you the price for a mistake of that caliber is high. I doubt he would toss me to the Red Star, but there would have been repercussions. Nasty ones at that, and Lena knew that. She told that lie to keep me from going apeshit right there on the spot, you know? Just to give me time to be mad at some made-up cop instead of lashing out at the real offenders. Gregory feared the day that Tabitha might learn of his encounter with Lacey in the hotel room. He'd since learned her real fate from conversations with Trevor, but still, he could have killed her. He did not want to know how his psychotic little lover would react to learning such facts. Instead, Gregory continued to do his best to soothe Tabitha and win her back from her earlier rage at his comments. He wouldn't make that mistake again. That much he promised himself. Tabs, I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sparing Trevor from both the dungeons and your blade. He is important to me. He is my family. Really, all the family I've got left. I can't thank you enough. That's what I want to say. You are an angel in my eyes. Tabitha allowed a smile to form briefly on her lips. Gregory knew without having to be told that he was forgiven. He would just have to be more careful from now on. He'd actually wanted to talk to her about being allowed to return to London for a few days in order to keep his business affairs in order, but he now realized that would be a risky request. It would simply have to wait. Greg, if you want to thank me, then you need to get your brother on board, okay? I get that this is all very new and scary for him, and his lack of spine is no doubt making it all that much tougher, but still, you got to get him in line. When Mr. Pinky gets back, he's going to want results. He's going to want this whole unwashed thing squashed. We still haven't gotten Van Buren or the other captured rebels to talk either. They can sure as hell take some pain. I give them that much. Having your brother moping up there like some emotional fucking high school kid is not going to exactly endear his being here to Mr. Pinky. So, if you really want Trevor to keep breathing, I do suggest you make some time and try to bring him around. Gregory at first intended to go and talk to Trevor later that evening, but as Tabitha unmuted the television and Gregory's ears were assaulted by the harsh voice of some real housewife verbally attacking the camera because some friend didn't attend some party, he decided that there really was no time like the present and politely excused himself from Tabitha's chambers. Trevor Leary paced about what he still could not believe were his brother's chambers atop what was known as the Great Tower within Delphia. Apparently it housed the important folk around here. Tabitha had a room within the tower, as did a man named James Craven who'd been identified as the city's magistrate. What that meant or exactly what his duties might be was a mystery. Another man named Brighton Levy lived on one of the lower floors. He was the chief constable, so Trevor had been told, and was in charge of the blue uniformed cops. Over the first few days here, Gregory had told Trevor all about he'd come to be somewhat in charge of the very city they'd once fought so hard against. He told of his encounter with the ever-so-charming Pinkerton. He told of his affair with Tabitha, which was still ongoing. He told of how he'd finally gotten to the bottom of their father's death and had held the bastard Madison accountable for his actions. All of that led to his new, strange, and quite exciting status of loft within Delphia. As much as it was inconceivable that his own brother was somehow running Delphia, he knew that if any man out there were capable of such a power grab, it would be Gregory. That much didn't surprise him. Over the last 2 weeks, Gregory spent most of his days splitting time between Trevor and Tabitha. He slept most nights in her chambers, but did occasionally share the Grand Magus's room with his brother. It was almost like old times in a bizarre way. Trevor and Gregory, lying awake in the dark, fighting sleep and talking. It was during one of those late-night talks that Trevor was finally able to understand all the whats and hows that led to his brother essentially taking Madison's place. Trevor had also told Gregory the details of how they'd come to Delphia. It was on his first night in the city. Tabitha was still in a blind rage over the loss of Lacey, so Gregory decided it would be quite prudent to give her the space she needed. Plus, Trevor would need company. It wasn't going to be easy for him to adjust to this, so, much like old times, Gregory made up the small antique couch in the Grand Magus's quarters and settled in as he allowed his brother to take his bed. Talking in hushed whispers, not wanting Tabitha or perhaps some other unseen force to hear too much, Trevor began telling Gregory of their final night in New Orleans, before coming through the door that Lena enchanted and walking into Delphia. Stealing mail in applied mythology. Trevor began the story by telling Gregory the ultimate fate of Lacey Susino, of Lena revealing that she was working with none other than Brandon Leary, their brother's long-distant uncle and apparent leader of the unwashed. He told of the little girl Soka, who'd crossed through a dreamscape in order to deliver a passphrase to Claire, the very phrase that informed Lena it was finally time to move forward with their operation. Once the prelude was told, Trevor moved into the story of their last night before coming here. Gregory found it to be a nice story, at least up till the end that it was, when madness found its way back in. For the most part, though, it reminded him of what a good soul his younger brother was, and it caused him to feel resentment towards Tabitha for the constant insults towards Trevor. Gregory listened intently as Trevor told his tale. Trevor and Derek shared a room in their last couple of days in New Orleans. Claire had gone and gotten her own room. Derek had teased Trevor, but not in a malicious manner. Lena informed the group that she needed to go and properly mourn Lacey. They told her they understood, although Derek, who'd spent some time as Lacey's private captive, didn't think that he could ever come close to feeling anything that remotely resembled pity for her fate. Her death was a good thing for the world, as far as Derek Reynolds was concerned. They all met in the lobby the next morning. Lena instructed them that today was for getting their personal affairs in order. Claire stated that she had a few calls to make and some emails to send, and promptly went to her room to do so. Derek and Trevor made quick work in taking care of their personal matters. Derek informed his superiors at One Shell Square that he had a personal emergency arise out of state, and that it might take up to a week or two to iron it all out. There was some resistance on the part of his boss, but in the end, what was he to do? If Derek had to go and get affairs, then that is what he had to do, and trying to force him to work would not change that. Derek also took time to pay his landlord the next month's rent, just in case they were gone a while. Trevor rode with him back to his apartment so that he could drop off the rent checks, as well as clean out any perishable items from his refrigerator. They didn't linger long at Derek's place, though. This was the site of a murder now, and could have easily been the site of all their deaths had Claire's passphrase not worked. Once this is over, Trev, I don't think I'll be able to really live here. I might just break the lease and let my credit score take the hit. I can't see myself watching a movie on the same couch where we were held at knife point by Lacey. Hell, I don't even want to sit on the couch where Lena sat her corpse. If there are such things as ghosts, just try and imagine what it would feel like to be haunted by Lacey Susino for the rest of your life. I agree with you. I've been holding on to hope that Gregory is still alive and safe, even if he did wind up in Delphia. That guy could talk Satan into going to Sunday Mass if he set his mind to it. Still, though, should my brother not have survived, I'll probably sell our estate in London and just move into a flat or something. That house, my father was murdered there. All the secrets of Tobit and Delphia were hidden there. I know there's no way I could live there alone, even if Gregory does come out of this safely. I think I'll still move out. Too much bad stuff there. It's cancer for the soul. Wait, Trevor, didn't you tell me that you're a lawyer? Derek asks. Yeah, gotta practice in London. Gregory had me use a lot of my connections back when we were trying to keep the Cedartown from being dug up from under Whitehall. Why do you ask? Well, you were worried about cancer of the soul, but Trev, if you're a lawyer, you've got nothing to worry about. How do you figure? 'Cause, brother, you ain't got no soul. Derek laughed hard at his own joke and lightly slapped Trevor on the back. Trevor found himself laughing a bit in spite of it all, though. It was somewhat nice to know that even in this madness, such simple concepts as lawyer jokes remained intact. On their way back to the hotel, Trevor took care of his own personal affairs. His were rather easy as well. As partner in his law firm, he didn't exactly have to ask permission to take time off. He was already on vacation as far as his employers knew anyway, and adding another couple of weeks to it was no big deal. Trevor had to remind Derek a few times that the general attitude in Europe compared to the United States about taking time from work was quite different. Most companies in England encouraged regular use of time off and vacationing, at least in Trevor's experience. He actually felt a bit bad for American workers, chained to their desks year-round. As far as the house that Trevor and Gregory shared, it was a family estate, long owned by the Leary clan. No need to worry about paying any bills. Plus, there were cleaners and other service folk that would ensure that place was as pristine as they left it once the Leary brothers returned to London. One of these days, Trev, I'm just going to show up out there and become the couch-riding slob friend of yours. You know it would be fun. You know, Derek, I'd actually like that. Believe it or not, I don't have many friends, especially since my brother revealed the Tobit origins and I started seeing the goat heads and all. I've seen 2 of them just since we left the hotel. Dude, that sucks. I mean, thank God that didn't happen to me. I never had any problems after my little escape from Delphia, besides normal nightmares and anxiety at first. The worst was no one believing me. I went to therapy for a while and had to essentially sit there and be called a liar by the very doctor I was paying to try and fix me. I met this girl there, Lisa. She was nutty as hell and didn't even have Delphia as an excuse. We dated for a time. You know, she had to have her mother call her every night and sing her a lullaby or she couldn't get to sleep. Yeah, even on the nights that I slept at her house, she had to get that call. I remember one night her cell phone ran out of juice and she couldn't call her mom. I mean, I had my phone, but Lisa didn't actually know her mother's number. Can you believe that? She had it programmed in the phone to call, and without that, she had no way to call. So here we are, at my place. I have an Android phone, she has an iPhone, so my charger is out of use to her. I was drunk, so there was no way I was driving her back to her apartment to get her charger, and she couldn't drive stick shift. So she is totally freaking the fuck out, crying, singing a lullaby to herself, and trying to do it in her mom's New Jersey accent. So I'm just sitting there, drunk and trying my damned hardest not to laugh at her, as mean as that sounds. Well, what did she end up doing? Get this, man. She went outside and started knocking on all my neighbors' doors. Yeah, it's around 2 a.m. and this hysterical girl with smeared makeup is frantically banging on doors. I was 100% sure someone was going to call the cops. Luckily, my neighbor Sue is a real sweetheart. She used to train therapy dogs for military veterans. She has a real soft spot for people in pain. She came out, Lisa told her what was going on, and Sue actually drove her over to Walgreens to buy her a new charger, all so she could call her mom and get her goodnight song. Sue is a good person. She's like the anti-Tobit in our world. Sounds like Lisa went through a lot. Was it abuse as a child or something? No, at least not as far as I could tell. She was just way too attached to her mom. I've heard that boys are supposed to be more inclined towards mom while girls reach out to dad, but Lisa broke that rule a million times over. She told me that all the way from when she was a baby up until she got her scholarship to the University of New Orleans, she'd always had that lullaby. When she moved down here from Jersey, she just couldn't function without it. Other than that, she was a good girlfriend, I guess. Never cheated on me that I know of, didn't flirt with guys in front of me, and thank God she didn't have that horrible gaggle of girlfriends like so many others I've dated do. It's like, to date one, you have to win them all over. Lisa was cool in that regard, I guess. So, why did you break up with her? Sounds like you had a good relationship, despite her weird nightly routine. I told her about Delphia. I figured this girl would understand. As crazy as she was, and as understanding as I'd been, I thought for sure she was a safe bet to open up to about all of it. I told her everything. The yacht ride, Delphia, Tobit, and my escape back to the Dakota Science Station. I really felt that Lisa was the one that would believe me. I'm guessing she didn't, Trevor stated. She laughed at me and accused me of trying to prank her or some shit. Then she went on to say that if I really did believe all of this and wasn't just messing with her, that I really needed to spend more time with a therapist. How did you take that? Did you really lay into her, Derek? Give her a good reality check about hypocrisy? At first I wanted to. I even wanted to make her feel bad. Tell her that a girl that needs her mommy to sing her lullabies every night is not in any position to judge. I wanted to tell her at least I was working through my affliction. At least I had a chance to heal. Lisa just went to the therapist to please her mother. She even told me that. She admitted that there would never come a time that she could see herself getting to sleep without the song. I was so mad that I almost wanted to remind her that her mother wouldn't be alive forever, and then what would she do? But Trev, I fought that off. Really, it wasn't even Lisa's fault. Weird mental problems or not, she was reacting to my story of Delphia like any sane person would. So, instead of making a big scene, I just calmly handed her back the key she'd given me to her apartment and told her she could just toss out the extra toothbrush I kept there. I didn't have any other items there that I could remember, maybe some spare socks or something, but not anything worth going back for. And how did she react to this? Poorly. She got really pissed. At first it was apologetic anger almost, like, "I'm sorry, okay, Derek, I didn't mean to laugh at your little story." But when that didn't work, she got really angry and showed me some nasty colors. Before I told her my story that day, she'd considered me the best boyfriend she'd ever had. We'd even halfway discussed getting matching tattoos or something, but one Delphia later though, and I'm a small asshole liar with a small penis and no future. She actually spit in my face, Trev. I guess I was lucky that I got out of that relationship before we got tattoos or moved in together. God, imagine if I got her pregnant. I mean, she'd be singing a lullaby to the kid while her mom was on the phone singing to her. Fucking too real, man. Glad I moved on. I stopped going to that therapist shortly after that, even though I rescheduled my days as to not bump into her. That was around the time I sort of got this crazy fuck it attitude. Lisa, man, what a nut. But she had a damned grade A handy J, I'll tell you that much. Derek and Trevor arrived back at that hotel and met up with Claire in the lobby. Claire was ready to go out and see the sights. She wanted to relax and actually have something akin to fun before probably venturing into Delphia to die. She told the others that she'd taken care of her personal business, and when Trevor asked her what she had taken care of, Claire responded in what could only be described as rude annoyance. She stated it was personal business for a reason, though she did so with such false politeness that it created the rudeness that would likely have not existed had she just told him to shut up and mind his own. Trevor blushed and felt pangs rise in his stomach. Derek saw this and jumped in, knowing that Trev had a bit of a crush on Claire. This embarrassment was almost too painful to watch. So, being a good friend, Derek took one for the team. "Claire, for real, who'd you have to call? The Council on Nerdy Affairs?" This worked, and Claire turned her agitation to Derek, which gave Trevor some much-needed relief. After a moment of awkward silence, Trev stepped in and did an admirable job of smoothing things over and getting some quality FaceTime in front of Claire. "Listen, guys, let's not fight. Sorry that I butted into your business, Claire. I was just curious. Derek meant nothing by his comment. I think he was just trying to pull some heat off of me. You got a real scary face when you get annoyed, Claire." Derek raised his hand and announced, "Yeah, guilty. I just couldn't stand there while you got mean mugged, Trev. But yeah, I'm sorry for being a dick. Friends again?" Claire laughed and also threw in a quick apology to both men. She realized she'd been rude and owned up, thus repairing all. "So, no Lena?" Derek asked Claire. "No, she said she'll meet us here tonight around 10 p.m. She's really taking the Lacey thing hard. She told me that once we got all of our stuff taken care of, that we should head out and try to relax, as it might be our last chance." "Agreed, Claire, and since we have Derek here, we touristy types have our very own native New Orleans to play tour guide. So, Mr. Guide, take me and our lovely Dr. Nobles out for a good time. Please and thank you." Derek had to admit to himself that Trevor seemed to be showing some backbone with Claire. He decided he'd play wingman tonight and try to get some romance going between the two of them. After all, if you're going to head into a frozen hell and be eaten alive by demon worshippers, and in Derek's case, twice, you may as well get laid the night before. "Okay then, folks, let us be off," Derek announced with genuine excitement, and stood in the middle of Claire and Trevor, taking them by the hands and leading them out of the lobby doors and into the French Quarter. Derek showed them around the usual tourist spots, and for the first time in a long time, all three members of this little ragtag group of survivors felt like normal people. They walked around and told stories, some ranging from boring and bland getting-to-know-you stuff, all the way to some pretty wild antics. Claire surprised them most with some of her college hijinks. "Okay, tell it again," Derek asked, and for the third time in 2 hours, Claire went into her more wild, youthful misadventures. "Okay," she said while sipping a daiquiri that Derek knew would likely have her head spinning if she didn't slow down. This was back in the mid-90s when I was a kid growing up in Manchester, New Hampshire. So, seeing as how I'm not a millennial baby like you, Derek, we didn't have all this crap like Tinder and OkCupid and whatever other get-me-laid websites are out there. People back then did those dating profiles and get read through the mail. Claire announced this while laughing. The Hurricane Daiquiri, which Claire Nobles was still consuming too fast, was working its magic. The normally prudent, well-mannered woman of science was now giggling like a child telling a funny story. Okay. So when I was a kid, we grew up in the apartment complex in Manchester. Did I tell you I was from there? Yeah, the complex was fun. It was huge, so it was like its own city, and me and all my friends would always run around there and sorta get into trouble. Was this back before you became a bookworm science nerd? Derek asked, laughing as he sipped his own drink. Fuck you, and no, I was always a nerd, but having a 4.0 GPA doesn't mean I was like this little geeky kid that sat in my room with a textbook all day. I still did kid stuff, right? So there was this guy that lived in our apartment complex, and his mailbox, those cabinet-style ones, I guess. You know the kind. Well, his was broken, and we could just open it. What did you do? Put something in his mailbox? Trevor chimed in. No way. We would steal his pornos. Yeah, he would get porno mags mailed to him, and I guess he didn't care that his mailbox didn't lock, or shit, maybe he didn't know we could open it by jiggling it around. Holy crap, I bet that's why I kept getting the magazines. Eureka, I just made a discovery. Claire shouted this and got comical looks from some of the passers-by. Never mind her, she's stupid, Derek announced loudly. Oh, fuck you, my IQ is 150-ish. You know how rare that is? The story, Claire. Finish the story so Derek can stop asking to hear it again and again, Trevor interjected. Okay, so one day we went in there to steal his pornos because we'd sell them to some of the boys in the neighborhood. I think that's a felony, but whatever. So we go in there and find this dating service that I guess the guy belonged to. It was a survey thing to try and get him his perfect woman. I guess he was tired of all his girlfriends coming in glossy print. So we take it back to my apartment and decide to fill it out. Derek was now grinning from ear to ear. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was just the fact that Claire had once been out there pulling pranks, but this part just floored him every time. So we fill it out, me and my friends, and we make it horrible, like we paint this guy out to be as bad as we could. For his job, we put garbage collector. For religion, we put devil worship. We made him out to have a foot fetish. We described his ideal date as going to McDonald's, Dutch of course, and we made him out to be really broke. I think we even wrote that the perfect first date would be one where his mom could come along. Anyway, we keep everything else, like his name the same, but we use my friend Danielle's phone number, so if any potential ladies were to call, we might have a chance to actually mess with them too. And this actually worked. Unbelievable still, Derek added. Oh yeah, it worked. When Claire Nobles, Dr. Claire Nobles sets out to do something, it gets done. She concluded this statement with another huge swallow of alcohol, looking sad when she realized the cup was empty. I think I'm going to be needing another one of these, she announced to Trevor. Derek laughed harder and urged her to finish the story, even offering to buy her next hurricane. So, as luck would have it, or wait, should I call it serendipity? Yeah, I gotta keep the New England pretension alive, so as serendipity would have it, a couple weeks later the phone rings while we're all over at Danielle's apartment. She answers the phone, and this woman who says her name is Charlotte is on the other end. She says that she read the guy's dating profile and wanted to meet him. So, lucky us, Danielle had an older brother. We got him on the phone and told him to do a really deep voice and pretend to be the guy. Shit, I wish I could remember his name. Either way, we set up a date for the next night over at this Chinese restaurant that was close enough to ride bikes to. So we went over there and just waited, just to see what kind of woman would possibly be interested in this guy. She told Danielle's brother that she'd be arriving in a big black car and that she'd be wearing a navy blue dress. She told him to be there at 6 p.m. sharp. And the fucking chick showed up, Derek once again added. She did. And let me tell you, Derek and Trevor, she was actually pretty attractive. I just remember she was wearing these big, thick boots, and keep in mind this is like the middle of summer, and I couldn't stop laughing because I remembered the foot fetish part of his profile. So she goes into the restaurant, and we wait outside for about 30 minutes. Keep in mind, no cell phones back then. Finally, Charlotte comes back out looking really annoyed. I guess I can understand why. She thought she'd just been stood up. She's heading to her car, and my girlfriends and me just can't stop laughing, and I think that finally caught her attention. I don't know if she recognized our giggles from the background when she was talking to Danielle's brother, or maybe she was some sort of devil-worshipping, foot-doming psychic, but she stopped, turned around, and walked over to us. I still remember what she said. Garbage men actually make pretty good money. And then she says, and it's not nice to waste people's time, girls, especially people who now have one of your phone numbers. With that, she left and got in her car. We never messed with that guy's mailbox again. We were really spooked for the rest of that summer. Every time Danielle's phone rang, she thought it was that scary-ass lady calling. When nothing happened after a few weeks, we forgot about it. But still, weird-ass prank. They walked on a bit, telling tall tale after tall tale. Claire's little dating company story had jump-started the competition, and the three of them spent the better part of the next hour walking around, taking in sights, and trying to one-up each other. This would have likely continued until Claire stopped them in front of a used bookstore. She consumed another hurricane during their walk and was now full of what was commonly known in older folks as piss and vinegar. Oh God, they might have it here. We have to go in and check, she announced to both men and led them by the hands into the store. What are you looking for? Trevor asked, but she ignored him and went straight to the clerk behind the register. Sir, do you guys sell nonfiction here? A rather silly question, but the clerk was good-natured and simply pointed at the large wall with a blue sign over it with nonfiction printed in black. Of course you do. Sorry. I'm a little drunk, she told him in a low voice, as though her intoxication was some great secret just for his ears. No worries, darling. Now, is there a particular title you're looking for? Yes. Applied Mythology by Claire Nobles. Do you have it? The man clicked at a computer's keyboard for a moment before looking up with a smile. In fact, we do. Follow me. They were led over to a small shelf marked Science and Related Materials. He looked over at the rows of books for a moment before his hand darted to a rather thick hardcover and pulled it out, handing it to Claire. There you go, ma'am. That one is actually marked down 80%. If you want to buy it, I'd be happy to take an additional 5% off. We're trying to move these big, boring ones out of here, but the owner just won't let us throw them out. By this point, Derek was laughing well past the point of ever regaining self-control. Trevor was doing his best to join in, but he was losing that battle quickly. Even if it meant never getting that romantic shot at Claire, he just couldn't keep it in. He began to laugh in a deep, honest, and throaty manner. This, of course, got Derek going, who quickly grabbed the book from Claire's hands. Oh my God, man, 85% off, because the boss wouldn't just let him throw it away. Holy crap, dude, I think I'm gonna puke from laughter. Claire was giving them both a tight-lipped look of disapproval. Hey, at least I wrote a book. I had to do that for my PhD. And it's good. They just don't know what they're missing down here. Derek flipped the book over and observed the price. $3 was the asking price. He couldn't resist. Sir! Oh, sir! He called to the clerk. Yes? Is this the price with the 80% off, or is the discount applied to the price tag? That's the price before discount, sir. This set both Trevor and Derek into such erupting laughing fits that they actually had to sit down. So that's... Oh God, that's 45 cents. They only want 45 cents for this book, Claire. 45 cents. Trevor took a quick glance at Claire's face before continuing with the jokes. He really didn't want to offend her, and not just because he was finding himself attracted to her more and more, but because he cared about her as a friend. However, he saw no signs of anger on her face. She was laughing drunkenly at it and trying to grab the book as Derek held it about his head. Oh man, Trevor, look at this. It's even got her picture on the back. Look, it's even got her picture. By now, all three of them were laughing, shouting, and cheering. "And they put the bloody price tag on her forehead," Trevor added, causing another uproar of laughter from the group. Finally, the clerk, resigned to play the role of killjoy, spoke up. "Guys, you're being a bit loud. This is a bookstore, you know. People are trying to read. Are you going to purchase that book or not?" Claire, in full drunken insolence, took the book and walked over to the clerk. Sir, I wrote this book. I have a PhD in history. So why is my book only 45 cents? The clerk was becoming annoyed and did not appear impressed or fazed that he was talking to the author of said poor-selling book. She was holding the picture on the back next to her face and whispering, "See, it's me," over and over again. Derek was starting to think that Claire had the tolerance of a toddler when it came to liquor. "I'll buy the book, sir," Derek announced, and laid 2 quarters on the counter. The clerk thanked them and wished them a nice day in a tone that suggested get out far more than pleasant afternoon. Dinner time rolled around, and Derek took them to a moderately pricey place in the quarter that he knew wouldn't make a fuss about not having reservations. As they ate and slowly began to sober up, the conversation went from the crazy antics of the day into more serious territory. Delphia. "So, by show of hands, who here really trusts Lena?" Derek asked. Neither Claire nor Trevor raised their arms from the table. "That's what I thought," he continued. "I get that she killed Lacey and reacted to your passphrase, but still, this could all be one elaborate trap." "Honestly, I get a good vibe from Lena, but yeah, that could all be part of the act too. She is leading us straight into Delphia, and once we're there, we'll be at her mercy. If she screws us, that's a wrap," Claire added in. "So this idol, the one from the Epor story, that is the one the unwashed believe anchors Delphia into the world, eh?" Trevor asked. "According to Lena, yeah. I spent some time chatting with her this morning, before you guys came down. She says the idol is protected by some sort of sustainment energy, like one of those orbs that Epor used to preserve the Triassic Journal. That's why they just can't run in there and break the thing themselves. Lena tells me that there is some sort of incantation written in Dawning. She believes it's an encrypted set of instructions of safely handling the statue. The unwashed seem to believe that by reverse engineering those instructions, that we can maybe dispel the protections around the idol. That's their working theory anyway, and they think I'm the one to make it happen." Claire finished this with a sip of water, clearing her throat a bit. "Christ, Claire, you got one hell of a duty on your shoulders. I get that we all sort of have to play part in this, but they really saddled you with the heavy stuff," stated Derek. He wasn't joking around anymore, and had taken on a concerned tone that made Claire a bit nervous. She was already really worried sick about this little mission of theirs, and seeing their resident class clown suddenly becoming the stuffy teacher's aide didn't do much to lighten her mental load. "Don't worry, we are all in this together. If Claire is the one to break the spell, Derek and I will be working overtime to make sure she can get it done. You're not in this alone, I swear." Trevor said this with a certain strength that neither Derek nor Claire had really seen in him yet. "I want to rescue my best friend Sergio. I just know he's got to be alive. I just wonder, since they did that masking ritual shit on him, can he even leave the city, or does his soul belong to Tobit? Of course, there's Timothy as well. You guys have overheard me tell that story a million times, but that guy is the reason why I'm alive right now. I will get both of them out of Delphia. I have to get to Gregory as well. If Lena is right and he's back in Delphia, who knows what tortures he's enduring as we speak. I just can't believe he made a deal with Madison. He really was dedicated to freeing our family from the Leary curse by any means necessary, even making deals with the devil, I suppose. We're going to do this, guys. I know it. I have a good feeling. We've all survived this long. Derek, you even escaped from them once, so I know you can do it again. Lena told me that there is a crate of supplies for us to use that should be waiting for us when we get there. She told me that the police in Delphia only carry clubs, so maybe if we have better stuff. Claire trailed off, pondering this. Yeah, I guess guns will be the way to do it. I remember the cops there. They look like those old Irish stereotype police from the old movies. I remember them being really aggressive though, so don't expect the officer-friendly experience. Claire looked at her watch and saw that it was nearing 9 p.m. Lena wanted to see them all in the hotel lobby by 10 p.m. She informed her companions of the time. The check was paid, and the three left out intending to walk down Bourbon Street back to the hotel to take in just a few last sights. However, Derek had what he believed to be a better idea. "We have time to take the long way back. We can take the river walk back up to Canal Street. It's pretty over there, and sure beats getting puked on by some stranger on Bourbon." Agreed. I don't know when I'll be in New Orleans again after all this is said and done. May as well be a tourist while I can, Claire stated. "The river it is," Trevor chirped in good nature, and the three of them walked away from the crowded nightlife of Bourbon towards the darker and less populated river walk.